Hey everyone, it's Mega Champ once again. Still not really a whole lot going on. Unfortunately, it's probably going to be very dead or dead ish until probably May and June, unless there does end up being a general Nintendo Direct, but who knows anymore? Who knows? So it's time for another Full Thoughts video. This time for Bayonetta, the first game of the Bayonetta franchise. Obviously, I did play the Nintendo Switch version, just so you know, because the original game did come out in 2009. My God, man, my God, that's a long time ago. And the Switch 2 and the Switch version, the Switch port didn't come out until 2018. So that is the version I played, just so you know and just so you are aware. So just keep that in mind. I guess the only other thing I can really say before I get started here is it's unbelievable to me sometimes why people are like, why do you play on console? And yet, this DLSS5 bullshit situation is practically Exhibit A now. Yeah. Anyway, as usual, as per broken record of me, this is my personal feelings, thoughts, and experiences on the first Bayonetta game. Your experience, feeling, and opinion is going to be different. Everyone's feeling, experience, and opinion is going to be different. So that means my feeling, experience, and opinion is going to be different. And I'm allowed to feel the way that I feel, and everyone is going to feel a certain way, one way or the other. To the best of my abilities, even though I am no expert by any means whatsoever, I will be going over the story of the game, the characters, the world and setting where the game takes place, the graphics, and the gameplay. One more thing that I need to let you know about before I fully get started here. I did play this game on easy. There's three difficulty options: very easy, easy, and normal. I played it on easy due to it being listed as tough on game FAQs. At the end of the day, play the game however you want, play it on whatever difficulty you want, but that means I'm also allowed to do the same. As you should already very much be well aware of by now, I don't like to be overly frustrated or stressed while playing video games. So, with that type of difficulty, possibly I decided to play it on an easy mode. I don't know if the other two games, obviously Bayonetta 2 and Bayonetta 3, are also just as hard, but if they are and they are listed as such, I will also be playing them on easy, so just something else for you to keep in mind. Nothing else for me to really say here or to let you know about. I mean, this is listing like Xbox 360, but I did play the Switch version. It's hard to really show other versions on Metacritic now for whatever reason, but yeah, there you go, and we'll be going back to that at a later time. So, first of all, we need to talk about the story of the game, and there is not much for me to say here. And whether that is a good thing or a bad thing is up to you and up to perspective and up to interpretation. So, feel however you want. It's basically another quote unquote amnesia type story. The main character, Bayonetta, obviously on screen here, has no memories of who she is. So the game and the story progresses as she attempts to regain her lost memories. That's literally what the story is, mostly, other than the other facets of the story, which we may go over here in a bit. But amnesia type stories, when the main character has amnesia, is a bit generic, unfortunately. But, it is what it is, I guess. Feel however you want to feel about that. The other thing you need to know about this game, in case it wasn't obvious, especially considering the image on screen, um, this game is very fan servicey, quote unquote. In other words, it has a lot of fan service in this game. If you don't know what that word means, fan service, it's a term from anime. It's anime terminology. If you really want to know what it means, you can look it up through Google. But my sort of definition of fan service is basically there's a lot of sexual stuff. I'm just being honest with you. I can't monetize my videos, so who the fuck cares because I can't monetize my videos? It's a lot of sexual shots of the main character and in general, even in gameplay. That's what fan service is. In anime, it's like panty shots and bra shots and just sexual shots in general. So that's basically what I mean by fan servicey. And this is why this is one of the mini games, few games, its own sort of genre or niche or whatever wording you want to give it. That's why it gets the Gooner game, quote unquote, label. Yeah, I'm not explaining that one. I'm not explaining that one. Yeah, for reasons. Yes, reasons. Think or feel however you want. The main character, who is obviously a female, a woman, may or may not be attractive to you. And we are officially moving on. Yes, let's immediately and very quickly move along. So there is a couple of things I'm going to give this game credit for in terms of the story and the enemies that you fight in the game. The main enemies that you fight in this game are angels. Yeah, angels. You heard that right. This is where I'll give the game some credit here because, angels don't really tend to be what you fight in a game or even the main enemies in the game in general. In fact, most of the time, they tend to be the exact opposite, like your friends or your allies or who helps you and stuff like that. Obviously, there are exceptions. There are plenty of exceptions I could go through. Tales of Symphonia and Persona 5 being the bare minimum here, but you kind of get the point. And this game is one of those exceptions where angels are the enemy. So I will at least give them credit for being different and unique at least. Especially a couple of other things I will be talking about later that isn't really done in games or is the main character or talked about in general, especially in a hero like light or protagonist like light, so to speak. So another thing that I'll give the game credit for is something that they kind of do, or though more so Bayonetta does. The little trope that is in practically everything: movies, TV shows, anime, video games, basically everything, where, the antagonists or the villains like to give their little villain speeches or villain monologues, quote unquote, so to speak. And the majority of the time, the protagonists and the main characters just kind of stand there and do nothing and kind of let it happen. Even in anime as well. And look, I'm not saying that's a bad thing because you kind of have to do that and sort of let them show what their motivation is, I guess. But yeah, that's not really so much the case in this game, at least for the most part. At least for the most part. Because Bayonetta interrupts the villain monologues constantly and doesn't give two shits about the villain monologues overall. It's great. It's great, honestly. It's very funny and very hilarious. I actually love the shit out of that. So, thumbs up for that. I love the hell out of Bayonetta interrupting the villain monologues. So great. So great. Seriously, it's great. And it's great fun and honestly hilarious. I kind of wish they would do shit like that more often, where the villain monologue just gets interrupted. That's so good. It's so good. I'm just kind of saying. Unfortunately, there's really not much else for me to say about the story. So again, take that however you want. Interpret that however you want. It's really up to perspective, as usual, as always. I mean, overall, the story is fine. I'm not calling it mid or meh. It's fine. I didn't really mind it all that much. I mean, it's not the best thing ever, and it's not terrible. It's about average, mostly. Not really much else to say about the story. Sorry. It's just me, just the way I feel. It's not that I hated it, it was good at times. But once again, this is particularly one of those situations where the story didn't really start becoming good until close to the end of the game. Yeah, kind of a problem, I'm just saying. I mean, I wouldn't call the story mind blowing or amazing. It's fine for what it is. It is what it is, as I keep saying constantly, and is something I've been saying a lot in my everyday life mostly. But, you know, it really is what it is. Everyone's going to feel differently about the story. I mean, I'm not calling it mid. I'm not calling it meh. I would say it's a little above average. That's about as far as I'm willing to go when it comes to the story in Bayonetta. It's not mind-blowing, it's not amazing, it's not the best thing ever, but it's not shit or terrible either. It's there, it exists, but from the way my experience and my opinion on it is, it's basically secondary because this is another game that seems to be very largely carried on its gameplay. But, you know, feel however you want at the end of the day about the story of this game. It's fine, it's there. Nothing else for me to really say about it. Sorry, that's just the way that I personally feel. But everyone's gonna feel differently, obviously. Yes, obviously. So we will move on to the characters of the game. And there's not much to say here either. Are you sensing a pattern yet? There are only a few important quote unquote characters in this game. I'm not going to show you images of all the characters. One of them is on screen here, which is practically the most important game and what the name of the game comes from, Bayonetta. Jean, who is Bayonetta's rival, quote unquote, so to speak. Rodin, Luca, and Cereza. Those are the most important characters in the game. And there's something I could say about the last one there, Cereza, but I'm not going to because it would be spoiler territory. And I'm going to try my best to try to leave spoilers out of it as much as possible. But let's just say time travel is technically involved again. Oh boy, that just... that's so great. Look, time travel is fine in some instances and not so fine in other instances. Each situation and circumstance is going to be different, but that's all I can really say in terms of that. I'm not saying, I mean, obviously, few important characters in this specific circumstance and in this specific game isn't really a bad thing. It's really not. It's more so probably a good thing, but when it comes to character development, there isn't much of it. There just isn't. The only characters that really get developed in this game are three of them: Bayonetta, obviously, because she's the protagonist. Jean, her rival, which does make sense, and Luca, who shows up and then is kind of a mainstay after he shows up for the rest of the game. And considering some of the plot lines that happen, which again are spoiler territory, it does make sense for why Luca gets character development, and that's literally it. That is literally it. Rodon is basically a shopkeeper and he gets zero character development. I'm just telling you what my experience is and what my opinion was. I didn't see anything up character wise about him, but maybe that happens later. There are 3 games and it is a franchise, so I mean, is something like this understandable? Sure, you could make that argument. There's just not much character development there to speak of. So, again, take that however you want. That is up to interpretation at the end of the day. And like I just said, for the story of the game, there's nothing else I can really say here character wise. The characters are fine. I'm not saying I hated them or necessarily liked them, though Bayonetta was hilarious. And even Luca to an extent with how much Bayonetta messes with him, but I'm not saying I hated them or that the characters aren't good or anything like that. Most of them are good, and I did like the majority of them, and they all have their quirks and intricacies and hilarity at times, but there's just nothing else to really say about them, unfortunately, from my experience and opinion. And development that they got was, you could argue, basically the quote unquote bare minimum, so to speak, which again is fine. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm just telling you the way that I personally felt from playing this game, and you can feel however you want, as always. But again, it's the first game of a franchise. Maybe there's more of it later. We'll see. I'm just speaking on this game and Bayonetta 1 specifically. So, again, just how I personally feel. Feel however you want, and everyone will have a different opinion and perspective on the matter. That's just how it is, unfortunately. So, yeah. So, yeah. We will move on to the world and setting of the game, where the game takes place. There are 3 areas, quote unquote, so to speak, representing 3 worlds. The names of the areas aren't the most important, and it will be told to you if you play the game for yourself. And I can't remember them anyway. I'm sorry, I don't do that much research. I just kind of talk about my feelings on the game. Kind of obvious at this point, but yeah. One world that represents heaven, one world that represents hell, and one that represents the human world, or Earth, if you want to call it that. As far as the actual setting and human world or Earth area of the game, the majority of the game takes place in a fictional European-esque world called Vigrid, however you want to pronounce it. It's European. I'm not good with the accents. Bayonetta does have a bit of a European accent, which makes sense, although she's practically the only one. Basically, in the human world, it's most of the game does take place in the human world, in the Vigrid like setting, or in the human world setting, basically. The heaven world is visited a couple of times throughout the game, and the hell area actually isn't visited at all, even though they do mention it. It is the first game of a franchise, like I've stated way too much at this point, so maybe it's visited in a later game. I would certainly hope so. That would explain this. I'm just speculating, and until I play the other games, which I obviously will and plan to, but most of it is the human world and sometimes the heaven world, and that's basically it. But there are 3 worlds that are explained to you. It's just only 2 of them are visited, so maybe the third one is visited in another game. I don't know, but I'm just talking about the first game, obviously. So The world and setting of the game itself is fine. It seemed fitting, obviously, since another theme of the game is witches. Yeah, I mean Bayonetta is a witch, which dark, quote unquote. That's what witches are. Mostly known for dark magic. Though there are good witches, but not the point. And sages, no, who are mostly known for light, but I'm sure there are bad sages too. Just saying. And who the villain is and who the hero is the exact opposite of what you might initially think if you saw this on paper. Because if you saw it on paper, you would think witch is bad, sage is good. Yeah, if you saw it on paper and it's the exact opposite. Yes, so yeah. There isn't really much else to say about the setting. I did enjoy the setting of the game. I do kind of like seeing how games and stuff interpret things like that, witches and sages and religion type stuff, because it's always interesting and intriguing, honestly, for me at least. I mean, if you're one of those religious types and you believe a certain way, one way or the other, it might not be so enjoyable for you, admittedly. Although, if that's the case, you shouldn't play this game, but that's a completely different subject. I'm just kind of saying you might not enjoy it as much if you are religious, maybe. I don't know. Depends on if you're open to other views, which you should be, but I'm getting way off the rails and way off track. You get the point. I do kind of like seeing when video games touch on these subjects, is basically the point that I was trying to make. I was just trying to let people know, certain people know, if you feel a certain way, one way or the other, religion-wise, you might not enjoy it that much. But, it is what it is. There it is again. It's just what is the interpretation, I suppose. Don't really know what else to say, and I should seriously move on, yes, because I'm certainly no expert on this either. No shit. Yes, not an expert on religion stuff. So yeah, there you go. So now we move on to the things I'm definitely not an expert on, that being graphics and gameplay. Here's the thing that you need to know about the graphics of the game, which I kind of mentioned at the beginning because I kind of had to. This game initially came out, Bayonetta 1, that is, the first game of the Bayonetta franchise, during the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 era. Yeah, during that. In 2009, like I mentioned earlier, like I mentioned prior. Yeah, it's that old. It's that old. Almost a 20-year-old game. Not yet, because it's nowhere close to 2029, but it's getting close to that. So it's definitely a really old game. It got ported to the Nintendo Switch 1, the Switch 1, because we have to differentiate because there's a Switch 2 in 2018, which is the version that I played on my Switch 2. And the reason I'm saying that is because it shows. It shows. You can't deny it. You can't ignore it. It's literally right there in front of your face. The graphics are fine, I guess, for that era, that being the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 era, but they aren't anywhere close to what they are now during the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series era. Obviously. No shit, Sherlock. No shit. All I'm really trying to say here is that the graphics are technically dated and that it shows. It shows. I'm just pointing it out. And honestly, some of the cutscenes in this game aren't really full, true, quote-unquote cutscenes. They're just kind of still shots shown in a film reel like style. Yeah, that doesn't exactly help matters either. I'm just trying to point these things out. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm not really particularly saying it's good or bad. Admittedly, when it comes to how I personally feel about it, it was a little jarring for me personally seeing something like this. It's just one of these situations where their current generation graphics have spoiled us and me, and I'm just too used to them. I mean, I know I said that the Tales of graphics back with Zillia and Zillia 2 and even Grace's F to an extent were actually pretty decent, but it's hard to really not make anime like graphics not look somewhat good. I'm just saying, and these were not anime like graphics. So there's obviously once again a difference. I'm not an expert. I'm not saying the graphics were shit, they were fine. I'm just simply pointing out that, it's very easy to tell how dated they are, and that's really all I can say about the graphics in this particular game. I'm just trying to let you know, I'm just simply pointing it out. But it is an old game and the first game of a franchise. I should probably let it slide. I'm just simply pointing it out. Yes, that is what I'm doing. And that is what the excuse I will use and go with. Everyone loves excuses, right? Yeah, sure. Gameplay is clearly what this game is mostly about. Once again, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you feel and your perspective. It's mostly an action game. That's practically why I became interested in the game and franchise in the first place, because you have all seen by now how much I tend to like action games. And it is admittedly incredibly fun. It's very, very fun. It's just when it comes to like the combo stuff, I'm not great at stringing combos together or just great at combos in general and doing the stun lock stuff that other people can clearly do, which is kind of probably another good reason why I played it on easy. It's definitely another reason why it was probably good that I played it and played the game on easy, but it was still incredibly fun. It really was. And clearly the strongest part of this game, and possibly even sort of the point, quote unquote, of the game overall. I don't know if there were, well, I was about to say I don't know if there were a lot of action games back during the PS3, but Tales of still existed. I don't know. It was maybe one of the very few action games before that started becoming extremely well known as they are now. Who knows? I don't know. It was incredibly fun. That is the point that I'm trying to make to you. Like with everything else, though, it's not without its faults, obviously. Every game has its problems. I know, quite the concept. The one thing that I have to say here, which I do kind of feel like a contradictory hypocrite for saying in a sort of way, is that the game is extremely linear. It's practically one way and one way only. And it's practically on rails, so to speak, as the saying goes. Now, does this or did this personally bother me? No, not really. This was literally the main complaint about Final Fantasy 13 and 13 2. I'm just saying, and I loved those games. It didn't bother me personally about it being extremely linear and on rails, quote unquote. The only reason I'm even saying and pointing this out is because linear, quote unquote, and on rails, quote unquote, games get complained about constantly. 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 Am I telling a lie here? No, I'm not. So I'm mostly just letting you know. I mean, look, I wasn't exactly expecting an open world game here. Just saying. But yes, the game is incredibly linear and on rails, so to speak, quote unquote. Some of the parts that did happen in this game weren't particularly great for me either. I didn't particularly like them. Like, there was a high speed driving part, driving mechanics. Yeah, I'm terrible at that shit. I'm terrible at driving mechanics, so that wasn't great. But that's just mostly me being nitpicky because I'm terrible at driving mechanics. So there you go. And people wonder why I don't play racing games. um and honestly, some of the reaction times and required reaction speeds for the quick time events or QTEs that are in this game, they're way too fast. I'm sorry, they are. And I am not that fast at reacting that fast. Even on the easy modes, they are way too fast. I'm sorry. This is just obviously from me and my experience on this game. Everyone can react at a different speed. They were way too fast for me. I'm sorry. And I forgot to add this to my notes, but the on screen subtitles for the game, when some of the angel bosses would obviously speak in a different language, they would go way too fast. And I would consider myself a pretty fast reader because I've watched subtitled anime and I'm used to that, and they were still going too fast, and you literally can't pause. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. One more thing, which again, I'm going to feel like a contradictory hypocrite here. This game is too short. I'm sorry, it just is. It's too short. This game took me a little over 10 hours to beat. A little over 10 hours. I think it was either 11 or 12 hours for me specifically. And it only took me a little over a week to beat this game. A little over a week. Look, admittedly, I did used to think that 20 to 30 hour games were too short as well. But that was when I was an idiot, and I am going to admit that was when I was an idiot. And obviously, that was completely incorrect. But 10-hour games? Yeah, that's too short. It's too short. I'm sorry. I did say that Stray was a little too short. That won my personal game of the year last year, so I'm not really saying anything outside what I normally say. Stray is short. Indie games, one shot that I played last year. Short. Indie games are mostly short. But I don't really think Bayonetta is supposed to be an indie game. I'm just saying. It's a little too short. I'm sorry. That's just how I personally feel. And I have forgiven stuff like this at time if there are other things to make up for it. Stray had a shit ton to make up for it. One Shot had a shit ton to make up for it. This is not one of those times, unfortunately. This is not one of those times. I'm sorry. Feel however you want when it comes to this specifically. Clearly, this is going to be something that, everyone is going to feel differently about, but it was too short. I'm sorry, it was too short. That's just how I personally feel, okay? Feel however you want. For me, the game was too short. Yes, it was. So that's it. That was the story of the game, the characters of the game, the world and setting of the game, the graphics, and the gameplay. Overall, before I say my overall, here's your review scores. It is, I don't know why Metacritic makes it so hard to look at system scores, system-specific scores, but they do. But I will try my best here. Here's the Switch scores for critics, and this is going to take a while, so give me a minute. No, that's Xbox 360. And there's the user scores for Nintendo Switch. So those are your obsession critic score, Metacritic scores. Overall, for me, I enjoyed this game. I did, despite what it may seem, despite what you may initially think from everything that I just said. I did. I did enjoy this game. It just has some problems. Like everything does. I will beat this until it gets through. Every game has problems. You are never going to get perfection. Everything has problems. Every game has problems. What a fucking concept that apparently is now. Every game has problems. It was incredibly fun and even humorous and funny at times. But that was it, really. That was it. Nothing else I can really say about it. That's it. It was an incredibly fun game that was very funny at times, and the story did get good at the end. That was it. That was it. I'm sorry. That's just how I personally feel. It's just how I personally feel. And I'm literally not sitting here telling you that I regret playing this game or wanting to play the franchise in general. It's one game of a franchise out of 3. The first as well. I can't say one way or the other if I regret playing this franchise yet. I can't say that from playing one game. Nobody can and should. And I'm not going to do that, that's for sure. This is still a very much to be determined TBD situation right now. I need to play the rest of the games in this franchise to make that determination, and I fully intend on still doing so, because I did have a good time playing this game. I did. If I have to play the other games on easy, which seems extremely likely, then that's what I will do. But I did have a good time playing this game. It's just, to be completely and brutally honest with you and to not lie to you, it's not off to a great start, admittedly. But that's just the way that I personally feel, and that's just for me. We'll see what happens with the other games. We'll see what happens with the other games. My personal score, and it'll take too long again, but there you go. I mean, that's Switch. 8.3 user, and then 84 Metacritic for Switch specifically. Overall, it's... No, don't do that. Overall, it's this. Yeah, my score is definitely lower than this. And a bit lower than this. So mine is definitely lower than both. Everyone's experience is going to be different. My personal score for Bayonetta 1 on Nintendo Switch is a firm and solid round number 8.0 out of 10, which is technically higher than the score I gave Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion, but that's only because of the fact that the story in that game, Crisis Core I'm talking about, still feels like a complete waste of time and meaningless because it wasn't referenced in any other FF7 compilation game. Again, unless it's in Rebirth, which I still haven't played yet. So that's why it's higher than that, because the story actually seemed relevant. I'm just saying. And it didn't kind of feel like filler. I'm just saying. Non-canon, or whatever wording you want to give it. I mean, it's only 0.5 points higher if you want to be that nitpicky about it. But yeah, my personal score for it is an 8.0 out of 10. Game's fine. I did have fun. There's just not much else to say about it. I'm sorry, that's just the way that I personally feel about it, and everyone's going to feel a different way and have a different opinion. So there you go. But it's just me, if that makes you feel any better. It's just literally how only I feel. So I need to talk about a couple of things here because of a couple of games coming up. technically the next game I will be playing is Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, which is the Nintendo Switch port of the Nintendo Wii game Kirby's Return to Dreamland. So it's basically a port. Yes, it has new content technically. That's not a good enough reason for me. I'm sorry. I will not be doing a full thoughts video on Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. Sorry, it's not happening because it's basically just a port with new content. I'm not doing it. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. This will also more than likely be the case for Sonic X Shadow Generations, just letting you know now, but we can talk about that at a later time. For now, I will not be doing a full thoughts video thing for Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, which is my next game. So that means my next full thoughts video will be for Octopath Traveler 2. Oh boy. Oh boy. I enjoyed the hell out of the demo. I did. I enjoyed the hell out of the demo. Much better than the first game. I'm just saying, much better than the first game. We'll see what happens. We all remember, unfortunately, about how 1 year the first Octopath Traveler game won my disappointment of the year. We can only go up from here. Let's hope we can only go up from here. Demo was amazing. Demo was fucking amazing. Massive improvement. I'm actually looking forward to this. I'm just saying, I'm actually looking forward to it. So there you go. It's likely going to be an 80 plus hour experience for me. Most likely, anyway. Time will tell, to be determined. That's my expectation right now, at least. But my next full thoughts video will be for Octopath Traveler 2. But my next game is Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. So there you go. That's all I got for you. Still nothing really going on. Still very dead. If anything happens, you'll know. Trust me. Although it depends on if I feel like it even deserves a video or not. Because if I don't, it'll just be a dumb little YouTube post. But there you go. That's all I got for you. Nothing else to really say. Nothing else going on. And that's all I can really talk to you about and say to you. Still ended up being 40 minutes. What did you expect? I'm not even surprised at this point anymore. This is Mega Champ saying next time I'll be providing you with more unlimited guidance. At least it's the Poyo. You get it? Instead of saying boyo. I'm so bad at this. I'm sorry. Okay, we're done. Definitely looking forward to this. Outside of Final Fantasy 16, this is definitely another game that I was looking forward to actually playing. So, all right. I'll see you when I see you. Probably in a month or two. Maybe. We'll see. You'll know. You'll know. All right. Bye.